Have you ever noticed how, as the years go by, simple things start feeling a bit harder? Maybe your grip isn't as strong as it used to be, or you find yourself waking up more at night, restless and tired. Perhaps you've caught yourself forgetting a name or two and wondered if that's just getting old. These little changes can feel like quiet reminders that time is moving on, and sometimes they make us worry about what's next. But what if I told you that many of these struggles aren't just because of age? What if it's not simply about getting older or slowing down? There's more going on beneath the surface, something that's often overlooked, even by doctors and ourselves. This is exactly why today's video is so important. We're going to talk about the 4 things every man needs after 60. Things that most men never mention out loud, but that quietly shape their health, happiness, and sense of purpose. These aren't just little tips. They can make a real difference in how you feel day to day. Stick with me till the end, because I'll also share the one habit that can change everything. A simple practice that helped many men regain strength, energy, and a fresh outlook on life. This isn't about miracles or quick fixes. It's about understanding what matters as we age, together. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. Recognition, not for what he's done, but for who he is. Have you ever noticed how, after a certain age, people seem to stop seeing you for who you are and start seeing only what you've done in the past? Or worse, what you can no longer do. For many men over 60, this is a quiet but ever-present feeling. You go through life with a steady hand, working hard for your family, making sacrifices that no one will ever fully know about, and carrying the silent burdens that come with being the man of the house. And then one day, you wake up and realize that the phone rings less often, your advice isn't asked for as much, and even at family gatherings, your presence is acknowledged more out of habit than out of genuine interest. It might happen at Thanksgiving dinner. You're sitting at the table, surrounded by kids and grandkids, and you find yourself drifting into the background. The younger generation is busy sharing stories about work, travel, or school. The topics you once held court on, finance, fixing things around the house, what it was like back then, are now just polite small talk, quickly brushed aside for something newer, louder, faster. Nobody is unkind. In fact, they might even thank you out of courtesy for the meal, the roof, or the traditions you've kept alive. But deep down, there's a subtle ache. Am I seen anymore? Do they know who I am, or just what I used to be? Most people would say, well, that's just how life goes. Kids grow up. Times change. You have to accept it. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if the need to feel seen, appreciated, and truly recognized doesn't just fade with age, but grows stronger? Is it possible that the most important recognition we need isn't for our achievements, but simply for being ourselves, our quirks, our wisdom, the laughter lines etched into our faces after decades of living? There's something about the human spirit that longs to be seen. This isn't just sentimentality. It's deeply rooted in how our brains are wired. Researchers at Harvard and the Mayo Clinic have both found that as we age, social validation, feeling genuinely recognized by others, has a profound impact on our health and well-being. One landmark study even showed that seniors who feel invisible or unappreciated are at a higher risk for depression, cognitive decline, and even heart problems. Recognition is more than a nice gesture. It's a form of nourishment for the soul. It might surprise you, but our need for recognition changes as we move through life. In our working years, recognition often comes from our career, the size of our paycheck, or our role as providers. Later, it may come from our role as parent or grandparent. Dad, thanks for the advice. Or, Grandpa, tell us another story. But after 60, especially for men who have retired or whose families have grown up, those sources of affirmation become less frequent. The truth is, you don't stop needing to be recognized just because you have fewer big things to achieve. If anything, your need for simple acknowledgement, for who you are, not just what you do, grows more important. So, what does this recognition look like? It isn't about trophies on the mantle or applause in the living room. It's about someone listening when you speak. It's about family remembering your favorite dessert, or asking for your opinion on something that matters. It's about being called by your first name with affection, not just Grandpa or Dad, as if your identity exists only about others. It's about having someone remember the little things you care about, and noticing when you're a bit quieter than usual. Let's get practical for a moment. How can you invite more recognition into your life, and how can those around you offer it? The first step is to acknowledge this need in yourself. It isn't selfish. It isn't weak. Wanting to feel seen and valued is as natural at 70 as it was at 17. If you have people you love, spouse, children, friends, let them know that you value their attention and affirmation. Sometimes, a simple conversation can go a long way. I appreciate it when you ask for my advice. It makes me feel useful. Or, it means a lot to me when you share your stories, too. For families and friends who may be watching, here's something to remember. The smallest gestures matter most. Take time to ask about your father's or grandfather's day, not just as a courtesy, but with real curiosity. Listen when he shares a memory, and follow up with questions. Share with him your struggles and joys. Don't just treat him as the fixer, but as someone who wants to understand and be a part of your life. And when you see him light up over an old song, or tear up over a grandchild's achievement, acknowledge it. Say, "I love that story," or "That reminds me of something special about you." These little words linger in the heart. Sometimes, the journey toward feeling recognized begins within. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself at this stage of life is to recognize your worth, even when the world seems to have moved on. Spend a few minutes each day reflecting on what makes you unique. Your sense of humor, your resilience, and the way you always show up for others. If you keep a journal, jot down a memory that makes you smile, or a lesson you'd like to pass on. These small acts of self-recognition build a quiet inner confidence that no one can take away. Let me share a story about the recognition that changed a man's life. Meet Walter, a retired machinist from Wisconsin, now 74. After he retired, Walter felt the days out before him, once filled with purpose, now oddly silent. His children were busy with their own lives, and he rarely saw his old co-workers. For a while, he felt like a shadow at home, more a fixture in his favorite chair than a presence to be noticed. Then, one autumn afternoon, his granddaughter Annie came to visit with a school project in hand. She wanted to know what life was like before the internet. At first, Walter was hesitant. Did anyone care? But as he started sharing stories of his childhood, the long summers spent fishing with his father, the sound of the old radio in the machine shop, Annie listened, really listened. She asked questions, laughed at his jokes, and wrote down everything he said. When Annie presented her project at school, she told her classmates, "My grandpa is a living treasure." For Walter, that moment of recognition was worth more than any award. He didn't just feel remembered, he felt truly seen. There's something powerful about that. Recognition isn't about inflating egos or living in the past. It's about reminding ourselves, and each other, that every life has meaning, no matter how quietly lived. In a world that moves quickly and often values youth and novelty, pausing to honor the wisdom, humor, and quiet strength of our elders is an act of love, one that enriches everyone involved. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. So here's a gentle challenge for you, whether you're watching this for yourself or for someone you care about. This week, take one small step toward recognizing the worth of an older man in your life, or even yourself. Call an old friend and tell him you appreciate his loyalty. Thank your neighbor for the stories he shares over the fence. Look in the mirror and remember that you are still here, still valuable, still you. And if you're feeling overlooked, remember, you are not alone. Many men feel the same way, even if they don't say it out loud. By reaching out, by sharing your own stories, by letting others see who you are, not just what you have done, you open the door to deeper connection and a richer, more meaningful life. At the end of the day, recognition is not about grand gestures. It's about noticing, appreciating, and celebrating the person in front of you. It's about saying, "You matter," not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you are today. So, take a deep breath and give yourself, and those around you, the gift of recognition. It may be the most important thing you do, for your heart and theirs. You have spent a lifetime giving to others. Now, let yourself receive. You are not invisible. You are irreplaceable. And you are worthy of being seen. 2. Someone to confide in, not just a spouse, but an emotional companion. As we get older, it's easy to assume that the need for real companionship just fades away. After all, many men over 60 have lived through decades of marriage, raised children, seen friends come and go, and built a whole lifetime of relationships. There's a comfort in routine, a cup of coffee in the early morning, the familiar view from the porch, the steady presence of a spouse or loved one moving about the house. Yet, for all its quiet beauty, there's a hidden ache that most people rarely talk about, the need for someone to talk to. Not just small talk about the weather or the grandkids, but a deep, honest conversation, a space where feelings and fears can be shared without judgment. It's a reality that so many older men face, even if they never mention it out loud. On the outside, everything may look fine. There are chores to do, stories to tell, and maybe even an old friend who calls once in a while. But inside, there can be a silence that grows bigger with time, a longing for a true confidant. Someone to share your hopes, regrets, memories, and worries with. Someone who listens not out of duty, but because they genuinely care. Society often paints a picture of the strong, silent type, the man who handles his own problems, keeps his feelings to himself, and never lets his guard down. It's a role that many have worn for so long it becomes second nature. Don't complain. Don't burden others. Be grateful for what you have. These words, spoken or unspoken, can make it hard to reach out, even when the heart aches for connection. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if, instead of becoming less important with age, real companionship becomes more vital? What if, after 60, the need for someone to confide in is not a weakness but a strength, a sign of a life still open, still searching, still loving? Science has a lot to say on this subject, and the answers may surprise you. Studies from the National Institute on Aging and Harvard Medical School have shown that emotional companionship is one of the key factors for health and happiness as we age. Regular, meaningful social interaction doesn't just lift the spirits, it can lower the risk of depression, boost the immune system, and even support better memory and cognitive health. Some researchers believe that the simple act of sharing your feelings with a trusted friend or companion can have the same positive effects on the brain as physical exercise does on the body. Why is this? Because we are wired for connection. Our brains respond to empathy and understanding the same way they respond to food or shelter. When we confide in someone and feel heard, it triggers a release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which soothes anxiety and strengthens feelings of safety and trust. It's nature's way of reminding us that we are not meant to face life's challenges alone. Yet, so many older men struggle with loneliness, even amid family. Children are busy, old friends move away, and sometimes, the most personal feelings are hard to share with a spouse, especially if you've always been the one expected to be strong. The truth is, no matter how loving a marriage might be, we all benefit from having someone outside the immediate circle to open up to. A brother, an old army buddy, a neighbor, or even a new friend met later in life. So, what can you do if you recognize yourself in these words? If you're longing for a deeper connection but aren't sure where to start, know that you're not alone. The first step is the hardest, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, even just a little. That might mean picking up the phone and calling someone you haven't spoken to in a while, or reaching out to a neighbor for a walk or a cup of coffee. It could mean joining a local club, a senior center, or even an online group where folks your age gather to share stories and support each other. Start small. You don't have to bare your soul right away. Sometimes, the best friendships start with something as simple as talking about a book you just read, a movie you watched, or a memory from your younger days. Over time, those little conversations can open the door to deeper trust and understanding. And remember, you're offering someone else the same gift you seek, the chance to feel less alone. Let me share a story about Jerry, a man from my hometown. Jerry was 72 when his wife passed away. For months, he kept busy fixing things around the house and helping neighbors with odd jobs. On the outside, nothing seemed different. But on the inside, Jerry felt a deep loneliness he couldn't shake. His children lived across the country, and his old friends were either gone or too far away to visit regularly. One day, Jerry met a younger neighbor, Mike, who had just lost his job and was going through a tough time. They started chatting over the fence, mostly about yard work and sports. Slowly, those talks grew deeper. Jerry shared memories of his youth, his fears about aging, and even his grief over his wife. Mike listened, sometimes sharing his struggles. Both men found comfort in the unexpected friendship. It wasn't about solving each other's problems. It was about being heard and understood. That's the heart of true companionship. Not just being around people, but truly connecting. It's about listening as much as talking, about sharing the journey of life, no matter what stage you're in. You don't have to fix everything. Sometimes, just being present is enough. For those who have a loved one over 60 in their lives, consider how you might become that emotional companion, or help them find one. Ask real questions, listen without jumping to advice, and make time for those deeper talks. Maybe it's a weekly phone call, a regular lunch date, or just sitting together on the porch and watching the world go by. The important thing is to create space for honesty and vulnerability. If you're someone who finds it hard to open up, remember this: vulnerability is not a weakness. It's one of the bravest things you can do. When you share your true self, you permit others to do the same. You might be surprised by how many people around you are also longing for a real connection. There are practical steps you can take to nurture companionship in your life. Here are a few gentle ideas you might try, without feeling overwhelmed. Reach out to an old friend. Even a simple, "I was thinking about you," can reopen doors you thought were closed. Join a group. Whether it's a book club, a volunteer organization, or a faith community, finding people with shared interests can spark new friendships. Be present for others. Sometimes, being a good listener for someone else creates space for them to reciprocate. Try something new. Take a class, try a new hobby, or attend a local event. New experiences can lead to new connections. Express yourself. Write a letter, start a journal, or record memories to share with family. Sometimes, even sharing your thoughts with yourself can bring a sense of companionship. Most importantly, don't be discouraged if it takes time. Relationships, especially deep and meaningful ones, can't be rushed. Keep your heart open, and you'll find that companionship can blossom in the most unexpected places. To all the men watching this, know that your feelings matter. Wanting someone to confide in doesn't make you any less strong. It's a sign of wisdom, of a life lived deeply, of understanding that connection is what keeps us truly alive. As you finish watching this, maybe take a moment to think about the people in your life. Is there someone you miss talking to? Someone you've wanted to reconnect with? Or maybe someone you see every day but haven't opened up to in a long time? Let this be your gentle nudge to reach out, to share a piece of your heart, and to invite someone else to do the same. Life after 60 is filled with joys and challenges, but it's never too late for friendship, trust, and honest conversation. We're all in this together, and no one should have to face it alone. So here's a thought to carry with you. The strongest men are not the ones who stand alone, but the ones who know the value of leaning on others and allowing others to lean on them. That's how we find hope, healing, and happiness, together, as companions on this remarkable journey called life. 3. A sense of usefulness. Not just waiting for the phone to ring. There's a certain hush that comes into a man's life after retirement, a gentle quiet that settles in once the rush of daily work is over and the to-do lists grow shorter. For some, this change feels like a well-earned rest. Finally, there's time to enjoy a second cup of coffee, read the paper slowly, and maybe watch the sunlight dance through the window. But for many men, after decades of providing, fixing, and being depended on, that silence can feel unsettling. It's the moment when usefulness, the sense of having a role to play, becomes more precious, and sometimes more elusive than ever. It's a feeling that sneaks up quietly. Maybe you've noticed it yourself, or maybe you've seen it in a father, a brother, or a friend. The phone doesn't ring as much as it used to. The grandkids are busy, the house is tidier, and there aren't as many little crises to solve. For men who spent years as the go-to guy, the one who could be counted on to unclog a sink, change the oil, or simply offer steady advice, this newfound quiet can feel like a loss, not just of routine, but of purpose. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Society tells us that usefulness is tied to what we do for others. For men, especially in American culture, much of identity is built around being needed by a job, a family, a community. Retirement parties are full of laughter and speeches, but after the confetti settles and the cake is gone, there's an unspoken question: now what? When there's no office to go to, no clock to punch, and fewer hands reaching out for help, It's easy to feel like you're just waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for someone to need you again. But here's a question worth asking. What if usefulness doesn't end when the job does? What if, instead, it just changes shape? For generations, we've been taught that usefulness is about output, about doing, fixing, producing, and achieving. Yet science tells us something deeper. According to the Stanford Center on Longevity, staying engaged and feeling useful in older age is linked not only to greater happiness, but to better physical health, sharper memory, and even longer life. Having a sense of purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, is a stronger predictor of healthy aging than genetics or income. Why is that? When we feel useful, our brains stay active, our bodies stay motivated, and our spirits stay connected. We feel seen. We feel alive. And, perhaps most importantly, we know that our presence still matters. So, how do we hold on to that feeling of usefulness when the old routines fall away? How do we find meaning, not just in what we do for others, but in how we continue to grow and contribute as ourselves? It starts with reframing the idea of usefulness. You are not just your job title, your years of service, or your ability to swing a hammer or balance a checkbook. Usefulness is about being present, sharing your stories, offering a listening ear, mentoring, creating, learning, and, yes, sometimes just being there for someone else. Let me share a story about Bill, a retired firefighter in his late 70s. For over 30 years, Bill's life was defined by rushing into emergencies, saving lives, and training the next generation. He wore his uniform with pride, and his neighbors saw him as a hero. But when Bill retired, he struggled. He'd wander the house, fuss over the lawn, and wait for someone, anyone, to call. His kids lived across the country, and even his old firefighter buddies had their own lives. At first, Bill felt lost. He missed the adrenaline, the teamwork, the knowledge that his actions made a difference every single day. But then, slowly, things began to change. One afternoon, he noticed a group of neighborhood kids trying to build a treehouse. They were arguing over how to use a hammer, and it was clear none of them had ever held a nail properly. Bill walked over, introduced himself, and asked if they needed a hand. The kids' faces lit up. That one small act led to weeks of afternoon building sessions, sharing skills, telling stories, teaching safety, and laughing together. Bill didn't just help build a treehouse. He became a mentor, a trusted adult, and a living connection to the past. The parents started dropping by for advice on home repairs. Soon, Bill was hosting small fix-it classes in his garage, teaching everything from patching drywall to making the perfect grilled cheese. What Bill discovered is something anyone can tap into. Usefulness isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up, sharing what you know, and allowing yourself to stay connected, even if it's just with one person at a time. You don't need a badge or a title to make a difference. If you know about cars, cooking, music, history, gardening, there's someone who wants to learn. If you have the patience to listen, there's someone who needs to talk. If you've lived through tough times and come out wiser, your story can give hope to someone just starting on that path. For many, volunteering can be a powerful way to rediscover usefulness. Maybe it's reading to kids at the library, coaching a little league team, tending the community garden, or helping other seniors with technology. Even in a digital world, there's always a need for real-life wisdom and steady hands. But usefulness can also be deeply personal. You might keep a journal for your grandkids, recording your favorite memories and lessons. Maybe you write letters to friends you haven't seen in years. Perhaps you take up painting, woodworking, or photography, creating not just for others, but for the joy it brings you. The important thing is to recognize that usefulness is not a one-way street. It's not just about being needed by others. It's about letting yourself keep growing, learning, and enjoying the sense of accomplishment, no matter how big or small. If you find yourself struggling with these feelings, know that you're not alone. Nearly every man who has transitioned out of a busy career has wondered, what do I do now? It can feel awkward to offer help when no one's asked or to try something new at an age when many think learning is behind them. But the truth is, life never stops giving us chances to matter. If you're looking for a gentle way to start, consider these steps. Reach out to someone younger. Offer to teach a skill or share a story. Young people may not ask, but they are almost always eager to learn from someone with real experience. Join a group. Whether it's a book club, a walking group, or a men's breakfast, you'll find camaraderie and a sense of shared purpose. Set a small daily goal. It could be as simple as making a neighbor smile, learning a new recipe, or calling a friend. Each accomplishment adds to your sense of worth. Say yes to help. Let others be useful to you, too. Receiving can be as meaningful as giving, and it builds connections both ways. Celebrate your story. Remind yourself of the journey you've taken and the lives you've touched. Even if your world feels smaller, your impact is still real. Let's not forget the quieter forms of usefulness, either. Sometimes, just listening with empathy or offering a few kind words is the greatest gift you can give. There is deep value in being the person others trust for advice or comfort, especially in a fast-changing world. In the end, usefulness is not measured by how busy you are, but by the difference you make, sometimes in ways you never expected. You matter, whether you're leading a project or simply sharing a smile at the grocery store. So, as you move through this next chapter, remember, the phone may not ring as often, and the world may seem to move at a different pace, but your role is not finished. Far from it. You are needed, you are valuable, and you have so much still to give. The greatest satisfaction comes not from what we do, but from knowing we are still part of something bigger, still building, shaping, and nurturing the lives around us. Find your way to be useful, in whatever way brings you joy. The world still needs you, sometimes more than you realize. 4. A little tenderness, instead of always being the strong one. There's a certain image of strength that's been passed down through generations of American men. Stoic, silent, reliable. You see it in the old photographs. The young soldier in uniform, the father at the head of the dinner table, the grandpa with strong hands fixing what's broken around the house. He's the one who always knows what to do, who never cries, who shoulders every burden with a steady heart and a straight back. For many men, this idea of strength is woven so tightly into their lives that it becomes second nature. Maybe you grew up in a time when real men didn't talk about their feelings. Maybe you learned early on to keep a stiff upper lip, to never let your worries show. When someone asked how you were, you said, "Fine," even when your heart was heavy or your mind was spinning with troubles. It's a habit that can last a lifetime. Even now, after decades of living and loving, it's easy to fall back on old ways. The world still expects you to be strong, especially as you get older. When challenges come, illness, loss, or simply the changes that aging brings, the pressure to handle it quietly can feel even heavier. But what if strength isn't always about being tough? What if, as we grow older, the greatest courage is found not in how much we can bear alone, but in how willing we are to accept and give a little tenderness? Science backs this up. Studies from the University of California, Berkeley, and the American Psychological Association have shown that men who allow themselves to express vulnerability, whether through gentle conversation, a hug, or simply admitting they need support, are healthier, both mentally and physically. Emotional openness has been linked to lower blood pressure, stronger immune systems, and a longer, more satisfying life. Yet, for many men, letting down those walls can feel foreign, even frightening. There's a quiet voice that whispers, "Don't be weak. Don't burden others. Don't let anyone see you cry." But here's the truth. Showing tenderness isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of deep humanity and connection. Maybe you've experienced moments when tenderness slipped through, even when you weren't expecting it. Perhaps it was the gentle hand of your spouse resting on yours during a difficult day, or the soft giggle of a grandchild curled up beside you on the couch. Maybe it was the way an old friend listened as you talked about a loved one who's gone, or the way a neighbor shared a kind word after you lost your pet. These moments may seem small, but their impact is huge. They remind us that, beneath all our years and all our strength, we are still people who need to be cared for, and who need to care for others. Let me tell you about Frank, a neighbor I came to know a few years ago. Frank was 82, a retired builder who'd spent his whole life working with his hands. He was the sort who never asked for help, and everyone on the block knew they could rely on him if something broke or needed moving. After his wife passed, Frank kept busy, mowing lawns, fixing fences, always the first to shovel the walk after a snowstorm. But when his dog, Penny, died unexpectedly, something in Frank changed. For days, he didn't come outside. When I finally saw him on his porch, his head was bowed and his eyes were red. I walked over, not sure what to say, and just sat down next to him. We sat together for a long while in silence. Finally, Frank spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I never thought it would hurt this much. I've lost a lot in my life, but I guess I didn't realize how much I needed her. That day, Frank didn't need someone to fix anything or tell him to be strong. He needed a friend to sit with him, to let him be sad, and to offer a gentle word or two. As the weeks went by, Frank started to open up more. He talked about his wife, his childhood, and even his fears about getting older and being alone. And in that sharing, a new kind of strength emerged, one that wasn't about fixing things, but about feeling things. He found comfort not in holding it all in, but in letting some of it out. It's a lesson we can all carry, whether we're 65 or 95. Tenderness isn't about abandoning strength. It's about allowing yourself to be fully human. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is accept a hug, admit you're lonely, or let a tear fall without shame. Sometimes, it's about reaching out to someone else who's hurting and letting them know you're there. If you find it hard to show tenderness, you're not alone. Decades of habits don't change overnight. But there are small, gentle ways to let a little more softness in. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Let yourself enjoy a quiet moment with someone you care about. Hold their hand, look them in the eye, and listen when they speak. Don't be afraid to say, I need help, or I miss you, or even just, I love you. These words may feel awkward at first, but they are gifts that deepen the connection. Allow yourself to grieve losses, not just of people, but of routines, homes, or even parts of yourself that have changed over the years. Find ways to give tenderness, too. Write a kind note to a friend. Call someone who might be lonely. Volunteer in a way that lets you offer support, not just solutions. Remember, touch matters. Even a gentle pat on the back, a hug from a grandchild, or a shared smile with a neighbor can speak volumes. A recent study found that older adults who regularly express affection, either through words or touch, report greater life satisfaction and closer relationships. It's never too late to start. For those with loved ones in their lives, sons, daughters, friends, remember that sometimes the strongest men are the ones who need a little gentleness the most. Offer it freely, without judgment. Ask, how are you really? And be ready to listen. Remind them it's okay to feel, to cry, and to hope. As you go through your day, try not to measure your worth by how much you can endure alone. Measure it by how willing you are to let others in, and how you make space for kindness, both given and received. If you're watching this and feel a little knot in your chest, maybe it's time to try something new. Maybe you reach out to an old friend, write a letter to someone you've lost touch with, or simply sit quietly with a memory that brings both sadness and gratitude. Know that in your tenderness, you are not alone. Millions of men your age are rediscovering what it means to let go of the old armor and embrace the softer, deeper parts of life. Here's a gentle reminder. Allow yourself to be loved, not just respected. Allow yourself to feel, not just endure. The world may celebrate strength, but it's tenderness that keeps our hearts alive. In the end, a life well lived isn't measured by how much you carry, but by how deeply you allow yourself to connect, with yourself, with others, and with the beauty of each ordinary, precious day. So, if you find yourself always being the strong one, give yourself permission, just for today, to be held, to be comforted, and to let tenderness in. It's not a weakness. It's wisdom. And it's never too late. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to pause and remind you of something simple yet powerful. Growing older doesn't mean growing invisible. The needs we carry in our hearts, recognition, real companionship, a sense of usefulness, and a little tenderness, don't fade away with time. They become more meaningful and more precious as the years pass. Perhaps you saw yourself in some of these stories. A quiet wish for someone to notice you, the longing for a good friend to talk to, a desire to feel truly useful again, or just the comfort of a gentle hand or kind word. Maybe you realize these needs have always been there, quietly tucked beneath the surface. And that's okay. You're not alone. Life after 60 can be rich with purpose, joy, and deep connection if we let ourselves reach for it. It starts with small steps, recognizing our worth, opening up to trusted friends, sharing what we know, and allowing tenderness into our days. You don't have to do it all at once. Sometimes, the smallest gesture can light up your whole world. So, as you move forward, remember to honor these needs in yourself and in the people you love. Reach out. Say, thank you. Share a story, a skill, or a simple smile. Let others see you, not just for what you've done, but for who you are. If something in this video spoke to you, I invite you to share it in the comments below. What touched your heart? What will you try in your own life? And if you found value here, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep this conversation and this community growing together.